Okay, hello and welcome to another fantastic NoPody series. This is a chance at NoPody Studios where we get to spend time with Nobody's founders of many of the companies that we're building, and a chance for you to have an interaction and hear not only their lessons learned, but ask them some questions real time on the show in the comments. So again, don't forget to subscribe to our channels. Hit subscribe button now, or as we're going along, put some questions in the comments and we'll be sure to answer as many as possible. And this show, I'm delighted to be joined by Gareth Edge. So Gareth, welcome. Gareth's the CEO of one of our portfolio companies, ThoughtForma. And I actually spent the last week at the world's largest no-code summit in Paris. ThoughtForma is a no-code platform, which I'll get Gareth to share more about recently. But just hearing lessons learned from this conference is going to be pretty fascinating to understand, what people are thinking about the reaction to the product. I'm sure you got loads of great customer feedback. So Gareth, just before we kick off, maybe you could tell us, just to introduce yourself to maybe people who aren't familiar with yourself and even ThoughtForma, the product that you're building.
Yeah, of course. Firstly, thank you, Barry. It's good to see you again. It was actually really nice to see you in person a couple of weeks ago for, I think, like the third time ever. So that was pretty cool. I'm Gareth Edge. I'm CEO and co-founder of ThoughtForma, which is an intelligent no-code platform with the aim of helping and guiding people to basically bring their ideas to life in the form of digital applications. And if anybody's not familiar with the term no-code, this is essentially a way to kind of create applications or websites or other digital products, really, all without writing any code. Tends to be kind of drag and drop tools and like visual programming to make the development kind of easier and more accessible to people. But we're taking it further than that, and we're starting to incorporate AI and making no code intelligent and a lot more easier and even more accessible for people.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic to see your journey, Gareth. Like, I think we met at a conference in London, maybe nearly sort of 4 or 5 years ago, and yourself and your brother Jason had just sort of, I think, been to the Web Summit where you won an early competition there, where you were building the first sort of prototype, if you will, of the ThoughtForma platform using serverless technology. And instantly, I was struck by the vision that you both had, but also the technical ability that you both had to start bringing this stuff to life. And here we are as we sort of roll forward 5 years, and suddenly you're like a bronze sponsor at the largest no-code conference on the planet. So tell us, first of all, a little bit about like how has you see the no-code sort of movement, if you will, evolved over the last 5 years, and why has Paris and this conference, if you will, started to become the real focus and culmination point for that movement each year?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's come a very long way in 5 years. I mean, 5 years ago, it probably wasn't even being used, it probably wasn't even coined as a phrase, no code. I think that's really started to come into the mainstream over the past couple of years. Probably around about pandemic time was when that really started to be trending as the actual term. But it's just come along in leaps and bounds. I think pandemic was probably the point where just a number of platforms just kind of burst onto the scenes. And that was from anything around building websites to building applications to building out workflows and integrations and incorporating data. It's just gone from strength to strength over the past few years. But it's really, really leaped ahead in the last sort of year or so, especially with, the kind of generative AI hype train and everybody jumping on that and how that's kind of pushed things forward. I think the marriage between no code and AI is a very symbiotic one. It's one that works really, really well because in essence, they're both tools that make things easier for people. So you bring those two things together and it's just like a match made in heaven. I think one of the things that was really interesting to see at the summit itself is how much enterprise is now starting to embrace no code as well. I think that's fairly new. I think enterprise have been quite hands off and quite reluctant to take it on into their organizations, whereas that was not the case. There was many exhibitors that were all focused around enterprise. There were large organizations there represented, people like PwC, even governments. They're bringing no code now into their operations to speed up internal processes and application development, and obviously bring topics like compliance and regulation, scalability and security, all that kind of stuff bubbling to the surface. So those were there were some pretty key exhibitors and themes around enterprise. Another thing that I wanted to touch on as well, which I thought was really nice to see, is how no code truly is a movement. There's a lot of appetite for cooperation, and partnerships. That was really palpable. It's not all about competition, as with so many other markets. The players in the no-code space, they really do see it as a movement and a chance to redefine the whole software development landscape, and democratize technology. So we were having lots of conversations with fellow exhibitors who are really keen to kind of explore partnership opportunities. And I just thought that was really surprising to see, but, very, very interesting. And we'll certainly be following up with many of these contacts. I think, because no code is so broad, there's actually so many opportunities for individual players to kind of work together. We were speaking to one company that were purely focused on building marketplace applications. And they had their kind of MVP out and it looked really good. But it wasn't a massively inspiring experience to actually build the marketplace. And when we showed them what we were doing, they were like, that could be our kind of front end to this, So there was a lot of that, that kind of collaborative, way of approaching things, which I found really, really interesting.
Yeah, well, it's lovely to hear, as you say, when movements start, it tends to be about everyone sees there's a huge amount of opportunity, right? And part of that opportunity is working and collaborating with other tools in the system that sort of you're growing together. But let's go back a little bit to this first point you made, though, about just seeing more enterprise showing up there, right? I think I remember even maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, both you and Jason published a report around this notion of citizen developers, or this idea that companies are bottlenecked trying to find engineering talent to build a lot of the technology and software systems that they need. So where do they find that talent? And one of the sort of promises, if you will, of no code was this idea that non-technical folks will be able to create and leverage technology in ways that can be meaningful for businesses. And for most part of that industry, we've always thought entrepreneurs, people who wanted to build and launch companies very fast, like they would be the initial sort of customer sets. But it's interesting to hear you say now that you're seeing larger enterprises start showing up there. So what were some of the different needs that you saw, people that were looking for as they came by the booth? Like, what were the types of customers that you were experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, so many different types. We did actually speak to one representative from PwC, actually. And I've actually worked at PwC before in a previous life. And it was just, for me, that was a massive eye-opening moment. I go back like 5 or 6 years ago and PwC wouldn't have touched this stuff with a barge pole. But they're clearly now seeing, the benefits of being able to iterate fast, and the benefits of, their individual departments being able to make use of these tools. And I think that the changing point for them is that they're now seeing the possibilities of not only just bringing their ideas to life quickly, but actually doing so with platforms that give them the kind of safety and security that there will be, scalability. There will be security involved. There will be compliance to certain regulations that they're going to absolutely have to have in place in order for it to be even, used within their organizations. And so, we've actually made many contacts that we're going to be following up in enterprises to start showing the kind of things that we're doing. Because I think that the thing that resonated about what we're doing and what we demonstrated is just how quickly you can play with ideas. So, we were there basically to kind of unveil this concept of what we call conversational app building, which is essentially kind of the ability to build digital applications, but using natural language prompts, a bit like how you would interact with AI chatbots like ChatGPT, for instance. And, we showed this off to people and allowed people to just input their ideas as a prompt. Could be literally anything. This was super engaging for people as well. I think, people got quite imaginative. Some of the prompts were quite funny. But like in under 30 seconds, they saw their idea come to life, in the form of this is kind of our first demo. So initially this is like a nicely designed conversion optimized landing page, but it also has some functionality built into it for them to sort of capture like emails in a wait list. And it was, people were genuinely blown away with just how quickly you could take an idea to something that could then be validated with the world. And just seeing that happen in seconds, that really, really impressed people. But then the real kicker is that what we're also doing is allowing people to iterate what was generated. So you don't just build it, you can then use natural language prompts using our AI co-founder feature to change it. So, they'd already been kind of blown away with just how quickly they could get something up and published and share it with their friends, etc. But then they started getting even more imaginative, like, oh, let me change the color scheme. Let me add some different images. Let me add a feature, like a drop down that's going to translate into different languages. So you could just see it sparking, innovation and inventiveness in people. And I think that that's the thing that's really starting to resonate. This concept of immediacy and literally bringing ideas to life. That was the whole reason that we founded ThoughtForma in the first place. And this is one of the first times that I felt like we've actually experienced other people experiencing that.
Yeah, it's really great because I know yourself, your inspiration, I think when we met was you had been to the Web Summit. Al Gore was sort of imparting a passionate speech to help get technologists to have a global impact to tackle climate crises, to help people build the tools to solve these big problems we're facing. And here we are now 5 years later, and you're in Paris and you're unveiling and showing this capability to people. So it's a special sort of feeling to have, I imagine. And so tell us for yourself, what were probably some of your big takeaways? What surprised you about the conference? Something that you didn't expect to see that you did, reactions that maybe even saw from customers as they were using your product. What are some of the things that sort of shocked you a little bit?
Biggest surprise to me was how many technical people there were, how many developers there were at the summit. This is a no-code summit. You expect it to be, the non-technical people, and traditionally in the no-code space, developers have been very skeptical about it. And back in the Web Summit days when we were exhibiting there, it was a very, very different reception from developers. They were just like, yeah, this is great, but it can't do what I can do.
Code.
Yeah, you can't. Exactly. It can't do what I can do in code. Very, very different mental shift at this event. I think it's just becoming much more and more accepted with traditional developers that they can't ignore the value add that no code can bring to their armory as well. So they're starting to realize that you can, they can increase their kind of throughput and productivity and break away from like the laborious stuff that you do at the start of every single development project. And again, this was another one of the seeds of myself and Jason, the CTO and co-founder, and also my brother, why we founded ThoughtForma was because we were getting frustrated with the whole process. We're developers through and through for the past 20, 25 years. And it's this frustration that you're kind of reinventing the wheel every single time. You're kind of committing the same mistakes over and over again. And I think more and more traditional developers are kind of seeing that now, and they're seeing how they can supercharge their traditional development with no-code tools. And the one thing that really surprised me, I had a discussion with one such developer, and he basically said, "I love your demo. I think this is actually going to help me ideate way quicker. Test out ideas quicker than I ever have done before, rather than kind of diving headlong into weeks or months of coding up an idea and then only to find that it just didn't resonate with anybody." To hear that from a developer was, I did not expect that, I have to say.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to be said, like often the bottleneck with ideas, like any creation, is sometimes getting to the first expression of it, right? And in many software, like the first release is this often, 6 months, 9 months, years, and it's a ta-da moment often where really what you find out is that the majority of your assumptions are probably wrong, and if you're spending a lot of time and money to get to that insight, it's an expensive way to learn. But even just listening to you describe the experience that obviously you've created on a ThoughtForma, where I can talk out an idea and literally see it come to life in front of my eyes, and it to be deployable, I can share it and put it in people's hands. I can literally have a conversation with a customer, get their feedback, and then talk to the application again to iterate it instantaneously. Yeah. Like that speed of iteration is really, I think, the power, as you have these insights that you can instantly take action and evolve your software and your product. So I think that's probably one of these like huge aha moments that's really obviously struck you and starting to strike the industry about the capabilities these tools offer.
Yeah, I think that's 100% the case. I mean, just seeing people put it, with no expectations to begin with, put these ideas in and then sort of get blown away with what was being generated, and then seeing them share it with their friends on social media from our booth, and their friends then responding in real time, that was the aha moment for me. It's like, this is what we've been looking for. This is exactly what we've been looking for. And then, you talked about who were the kind of people that came to the booth. We had all sorts of different people from all walks of life, all different kinds of backgrounds. We had one investor come over, and he said, "This is the freshest thing I've seen at the whole event, and actually for some time." Even to the point that he was going around to the other exhibitors and telling them about what we were doing, and he came back to tell us that.
Great. Well, I hope you got that person's card.
100%. Yeah. Shout out to Miguel. I'll be speaking to him soon. But, he was really sort of championing us, and it was great. He literally came over and said, "I'm about to go to the Middle East for another conference, and I want to show them this. So can I just check something with you? If I was to generate an idea, can I then translate it into Arabic?" And I confidently said, "Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, just say translate into Arabic, and it'll do it." And it was things like that that were just massively resonating with people, and people were starting to think, right, well, what can I do with this? Where can I take this? Who else can I show this to? And for me, this is, I think this is the first time that we've had that kind of reaction in the whole journey of ThoughtForma. You talked earlier about you can spend years kind of in the build trap And, I think we fell into that at one point. I think we were just adding more and more features into the ThoughtForma platform, and not really getting out of the building. And, this is a classic startup mistake. And, I think we've course corrected that now. And we've now kind of taken a much more sort of agile approach to, let's put something in front of people. Let's see what works, see what doesn't, and let's iterate quickly. Let's kind of eat our own dog food, because that's what we're telling everybody else to do, right? And it's paying off. It's definitely paying off.
Well, look, I love when people share these insights, right? Like, they're easy traps to fall into. Everyone does it. I've done it countless times. It's, I know companies in the studio will do it. I know other companies in the future will do it again. But this idea, as you say, like the recognition, the iteration, and moving in a better direction, that's the magic, right? We're all going to make mistakes, wrong turns, assumptions we thought were correct that were incorrect. But this speed of iteration that you're talking, not only that the tool is providing, but it's great to see you, as a founder, doing that yourself and growing your business in that way. And, that's what always makes me really confident that we're going to find the answers to these questions. Is they're hard questions to answer, right? And we'll have a guess, we'll have a try, and we'll learn, and we'll keep iterating and improving. There's a great quote here from Niccolo, who says, he's really impressed with this conversational sort of building technique that you've got, and he's a once no code skeptical. So it's even great to hear other people out there sort of who are aware of some of the things that you're doing, like them starting to think, wow, actually this is starting to happen, right? And other people starting to shift their perspective about how you might do this. So tell us a little bit about your own sort of journey, right? As you say, there's always twists and turns, successes, drawbacks. What has sort of been one of the things that you found most interesting over the last, well, especially couple of weeks when you were there? What struck you as someone building a company, as you were looking around? You mentioned this idea of a very collaborative community around you. I think entrepreneurs feeling like they have peers and support systems is a huge part of the journey. What were some of the other types of connections that you made at the event that sort of gave you this sense that it is a collaborative community building together?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously, just talking to some of the other exhibitors, people coming to our booth and talking about, partnerships. Honestly, people would approach and they'd have a badge on, and in my mind, I'd be like, oh, this is a competitor. But within 10 seconds of speaking to them, firstly, they're really interested in what we're showing. And then secondly, they were looking for a route to collaborate. And that happened so many times, it was untrue. So that's kind of like the exhibitors and the other players within the no-code space as well. But I think the other thing that was really strong out there is just the presence of the movement itself, especially in France. And I think that's because like the government of France have started to pick up on no code and starting to push it. I don't think that's happening in some of the other countries. That's not happening in the UK yet. But fortunately, there are a lot of people that are building organizations to educate about no code. And there were lots of these people at the actual summit itself. They came to our booth. We've started to already formulate plans about how we can get involved in what they're doing. There was one guy that came along he's got an organization called 100 Days of No Code, which again is all about educating people on how to get things built in no code. And we showed him our demo, and he was like, I want this as part of my curriculum. Like, let's catch up after this and figure out how to do that. And then there was two ladies from Leeds who I think their organization is called No Code Labs, doing a similar thing. All about educating people on how to build things using all of the available tools that are out there. And again, they were like, we'd love to have you as part of this. And then there's people that are, figuring out how to connect people. They're doing all the networking things. There was one guy who's got a networking event called No Code Drinks, which he's got a base in France, but he's also got a base over in London as well. And I said, well, I definitely want to be at the next one. And I also want to figure out how we can be more ingrained in what you're doing. So it's things like that. And that's where it was really, sort of driven home to me that this really is collaborative. This really is a community. It's really growing. People are trying to push it. And, we want to help them with that as well. And also try and get it so that the UK government starts to pick it up and push it, right? Like if we can make enough noise, then, this should start getting big in our own country, which it should be.
Yeah, well, you can always wind them up and say the French are making progress. We got to catch
up.
Because that's often got to inspire a few English folks to, level their game up. And so for you then, like looking forward, what are some of the things you're leaving the conference with like you've obviously got a lot of hope, a lot of energy, you can see the engagement and excitement in you just sharing these stories. What are you looking forward to most now over the next sort of 3 to 6 months as you build on from this event?
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, I think there was a clear validation around conversational building. So we're definitely going to be doubling down on that. And I would invite anybody who's interested or curious, please come and sign up at ThoughtForma.com. We've got a wait list there. Within the next couple of weeks, we're going to push out our initial version of this so that everybody can start to play with it and really to start to build on the momentum that was started at the event. We want to really capitalize on that now. We are going to be working hard to make it more and more capable in terms of what can be built conversationally. But also, it's clear that AI is the way forward. There's no two ways about that. That was, again, firmly validated. I think where we've been talking in terms of our vision of taking AI much, much further, making it much, much more contextually aware of what your application is trying to do and help you, recommend things to you, automatically create new versions for you. That's not going away. We've got a patent pending around that stuff, and that's where we're still heading. I think that is definitely the future that we're working towards. But we'll do it one step at a time, and we'll start with the conversational building and make our way to the headier heights of the kind of more runtime AI approach that we've got on our vision board.
Yeah, well, look, it's been fantastic, Gareth, to hear, check in on the journey, to see it from 5 years ago through all that time until now, and where you're even more energy to keep going and push ahead. Okay, I look forward to having you back again in the next couple of months. Again, people, go check out thoughtforma.com, sign up with the wait list. It's a great opportunity to start using these tools in anger, see how you can iterate, build, launch these products instantaneously. Thanks very much for being on the show, Gareth. And look forward to having you back again soon.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.